Hello, YouTube. It's Black Tiger Miner here. Welcome you guys back to the Black Tiger Miner YouTube channel. And today we're talking about the B650M, the ASRock motherboard. So in my video, I was trying to do this how to mine cubics with RabbitMiner. And he's talking about setting up a CPU farm that makes $200 a day. So I bought this ASRock 650 B650M HDV, and it says here, which I just realized, it supports DDR5 7200. So it might be a memory problem, but I have this Radeon R 7900 processor, and this is 7 series, and it says it supports. Where's the memory? I thought I had the memory on here somewhere. Actually, that is the problem. Max memory is DDR5 5200. So I suspect it's something between the memory and the RAM. I wish I would have. This is the RAM I bought, DDR5 6000. So I suspect I need 5200. And the video mentioned that it only supports 6000. So I suspect I might need 5200 RAM. So yes, this is the actual motherboard. This is the uh, ASRock B56, sorry, B650M HDV M.2. And as you can see here, this is the main problem. That red light is on. The red light is for memory and RAM. And the RAM is actually the CPU is a Radeon 7 7900. Let's see, what is the desktop processor? So I suspect its problem is the processor and the RAM together. So I might need to update the RAM. But let me know what you guys think about this as well and see if we can actually do some troubleshooting here in the video. So I might have just solved the problem, but let's look at this video real quick about this guy and how he tried to flash the BIOS.
The USB BIOS flash on the ASRock B650M HDV M.2 motherboard. This is going to be great if you're buying a new low-end CPU for this particular board, which probably isn't supported straight off the bat. If you're not too sure what BIOS you need, you can head over to the ASRock website. We'll show you this shortly, and you can actually check on your motherboard. You will find actually on the BIOS chip there is going to be a little sticker on there which tells you exactly which version you've got on the board. This specific version has version 1.21. Unfortunately, the processor we're looking to purchase is the new Ryzen 5 7500F, which actually needs a newer BIOS. So we can't flash the board from the BIOS because we can't get the system to post without having an older processor, which is supported. So we need to use a USB flashback. Now, in order to perform this, you're going to need a few things. One of them is going to be something to actually rest the motherboard on. The motherboard box makes an excellent choice. Obviously, you're going to need the motherboard itself. You'll need an ATX power supply, and also you will need the 24-pin main power plug, which goes into the motherboard. That plugs into this socket here. You don't need to plug in the EPS connector. That's absolutely fine. And you will need a USB drive. Now, the USB drive does have to be able to be formatted to the FAT32 format. Now, ideally, you want your drive to be 32 gigabytes or less. If you have a larger drive, you can create a smaller FAT32 partition on the drive. We'll have a separate video listed in the video description, so if you do need to do that, you can do that. So if you've got like a 64 gig drive or 128 or even a 1 terabyte drive, you can create a smaller partition on the drive to help you do this process. But the motherboard itself will only actually recognize a FAT32 partition. So with all that said, let's head over to the computer and we'll get this done. So we're going to need to go over to the website, motherboard in question. Make sure you get the right version. I think there is actually a Wi-Fi version of this board also, so just make sure that you have the right one. So ours is a B650M HDV/M.2. In order to get support, rather than clicking at the top here, scroll down just a little bit, depending on the size of your screen, and you can head over to the support section here. If you go into the support section, if you're not entirely sure which BIOS version you actually need for the processor you're trying to get running, head over to the CPU support list and you can go through. Now, clearly there isn't a great deal of processors on the market at the moment for this particular platform, so it is going to be a little bit easier currently. Like I said, the board we have got currently is on version 1.21. So this is suitable for quite a few of the processors. Unfortunately, some of the Pro versions and also this one here at the bottom, the Ryzen 5 7500F, is only supported on version 1.24 or newer. So let's head over to this section here for BIOS, and then we can see which version we can get. Now, there's plenty of different versions available. So the earliest one there is 1.24. That's the one we need as a very minimum. But as always, it's probably better if you can to get a newer BIOS. Now, some of these will be beta. The beta BIOSes for AM5 at the moment generally do become full-on BIOSes very shortly after. So don't be too concerned about getting a beta for these. They are updating on a very regular basis. And in fact, of the date today, that is actually the new BIOS out today. So I would be slightly hesitant to go for a brand spanking new one on the day of release, because you never know, it may be withdrew due to issues with it, etc. You could go for this slightly older one. So this one's about 4 to 5 weeks older. So you could do that. That's still a beta, but you can do that if you want to. These are mostly for updating the AGESA codes. The very latest one actually addresses an issue with slower boot times for XMP and Expo enabled RAM. So in this particular instance, I'm going to actually go with the very newest one because I do want to do some testing on this board. So we'll see what's going on. So download this. So we're going to click on the global download link. Then you get asked where you want to save. So I'm going to save this particular one to the desktop just for the ease of this video. It is a zipped file, so we are going to need to unzip it. So let's get it saved. And when that's done, you can minimize this window or close it should you wish to. So on our Windows desktop now, we have our zipped file. So we're going to right click on it, and then we're going to choose Extract All, then click on Extract. So now we've extracted the file. This gives us our ROM file. Now, unfortunately, due to the way that these flashback BIOSes work, they're not used to dealing with complicated file names and they don't really know what they are. So we actually have to rename this file. So make sure that you can see the file extension. If you can't, you can go over into View and you can choose to show file extensions. What we want to do is to rename this to creative.rom. So that's creative, as in Creative Labs, .rom. Doesn't matter if it's upper or lowercase, it doesn't really make a difference for this particular instance. When we click on that, because we haven't changed the actual name at the end, that's fine. So that is now ready for us to put onto our USB drive. So before we do that, let's look at our USB drive, which is going to be plugged in. So there's actually another BIOS on this one. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of it, and also it's good practice, is we're going to format this drive. So actually on the USB drive, right click, choose format. You need to have FAT32. This one's already set to FAT32, so that's fine. The allocation size can be set to default. Volume label, I would leave blank, and that is pretty much it. So when you're happy, click on Format or Start. This will erase all information on the drive, so do be aware of that. If there's anything on the drive you need, now's the time to save it before you click on Start. But when you're ready, click Start. It will give you the information saying, yes, it's going to erase this disk. When you're happy, click OK. And there we go, our format is complete. So that drive is now blank. If we click on it, so there's nothing there. So let's go back to our Windows desktop, go into our folder, and there is our creative.rom. So we're going to right click on that, going to choose copy. You can choose cut as well if you want to, the choice is yours. Then go back to your drive, your USB drive, right click and choose paste, or you can use the icons at the top here. So there we go. One way of checking as well to make sure the file is the right size is look at it there. It should be 32 megabytes in size. So 32,768 kilobytes is basically 32 megabytes. So that is absolutely fine. So now we can eject this drive from the computer and head over to our workbench. So now's the fun part, at least for some people it is. So we've got our power supply. This is currently in the off position on the switch on the back. So we're going to take our 24-pin power connector and plug it into the 24-pin socket on the motherboard. Make sure it's firmly in place and clicked into position. And that is basically all you need to do in terms of actually powering the motherboard. You don't need EPS. If you've got your system fully built and it's inside a case and you've just come to this point, you're like, oh, why is my PC not working? The CPU error light is on. Don't worry about it too much. You don't have to disassemble the whole thing. That's a little bit pointless. My suggestion would be unplug the EPS connector from the top if you can, and also remove some of your RAM sticks if you've got some installed. That for me works much better. On a fully built system, there is a tendency for the system for trying to boot. So by removing the RAM, removing the EPS, it just limits the system's ability to boot anyway, because we don't want it to do that. We want it to do a BIOS flashback. The next thing to do, we've got our drive here. So we're going to plug that into the port, which is marked at the bottom, which you're probably seeing from some B-roll. Insert that into there. If there's anything else connected in the back on your I/O, again, I would suggest removing it. It makes sense to do that. You don't want to complicate matters if you can help it. So if you've got keyboards, mice, etc., unplug all that stuff. Ideally, less is better. So now when we're ready, we can turn on our power supply. So that is in the on position. Now what I generally do, you don't have to do this, but for me it works well. So just press and hold the BIOS flashback button, hold it for about 3 seconds, or at least until the light starts flashing. So I'm going to press and hold, so 1, 2, 3. And you should see there is a green flashing LED. There is a little observation window just next to the port itself. Where are we? That side there. So you can see what it's doing. Now, the light itself should change speeds, flash slow, fast, etc. When the job is completely done, you may find that your power supply will turn off and the board will shut down, so there'll be no illumination on the back. If for some reason that green LED goes to a solid green, that means that it cannot read the drive or cannot read the flash file. In some instances, because ASRock do make boards for other OEMs, system integrators, etc., you may actually find that your motherboard has a very slightly different model name, in which case it's possibly been produced for one of those system integrators, in which case you need to get the BIOS from your system integrator rather than directly from the ASRock website. So that looks like it's going to be doing its thing. So we're just going to carry on let that flash, and we'll come back when it's finished. So this should take somewhere in the region of about 4 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes. If it takes any longer than that, it continues flashing, then there's a strong chance that it hasn't worked for some reason. Maybe the file's corrupted, or maybe you need to try another USB flash drive. Again, if the green light stays on solid, that means that it cannot read the drive or it cannot read the file. So if you get a solid green light at the very start, it basically isn't going to work. So turn it off and start again. Now ours has worked. It doesn't do any shutdown or anything, so you will need to manually turn the machine off. Easy to do, just turn off the power to the power supply. That is off. And once you've turned off the power supply, then you can remove your USB drive, and then it's entirely up to you what you want to do. Depending on the state of your system, if you then want to populate it with the RAM, plug in your EPS connector, put on the CPU, all those kinds of things, I would strongly suggest, if you can, and you have the ability and you've got the space to do so, try the system out just on a flat test bench before you start putting it into the PC, connecting up all your front panel I/O, all that kind of stuff. Because if for some reason it still isn't going to work, then at least there's less variables for you to work with. Now, of course, if yours doesn't work for some reason after you've gone through this process, please feel free to reach out to us, either in the comments section below, but ideally, if you can, head over to our Discord, go into one of the technical support rooms. There is actually a specific room now for BIOS help. So if you can, go over there, ask one of the moderators or myself to have
Video was from, who is this guy? Let's see, that was Mike's Unboxing and Reviews. And he kind of showed you how to walk through the BIOS, which is pretty good. But I do have a video from this Rick Tech Repair, and he's going to give you troubleshooting to do with a speaker. And I do have a speaker coming tomorrow, so probably it might just be the RAM, because looking at the specs, I don't think I got the right RAM. My RAM is 6,000, and on the specs for the board, it mentioned 5,200 speed, 5,200 megahertz. I asked a couple people and they said it really shouldn't matter, but I might try to get the 5200 megahertz and see if that's part of the problem as well. But I'll let him let you do this troubleshooting video, and I'll be right back.
Today's video, I've been looking at a fairly new AM5 build. This particular one, if we can zoom in enough, I'll be able to read it. It's a B650, where are we? Gaming X AX. And this particular one, I've been driven slightly mad with it. Been using a post speaker hooked up to the motherboard. And it's been refusing to post for me, display for me, do anything except display the right hand LED, which I believe, if I try and read it, is for DRAM. I've tried a different stick of RAM. I've tried no RAM. No RAM should get this squealing at me saying there's no RAM installed, but it still produces this LED. I since used the BIOS, the Q Flash Plus, flashed the BIOS on it, and that made no difference whatsoever with the new BIOS. I also tried a completely different motherboard, which is this one here, which is an ASRock Pro RS, which was producing virtually the same error message. It had LEDs down, if I can remember where they are, along this section over here, and it was also stopping at CPU and DRAM. And from there, I've tried a different processor in here, which this one here is a 7600. This one here was a 7600X. With the 7600 installed, this is now posting. I'm almost 100% certain if I do the same and take out the 7700 in this and put in the 7600, this is going to post. I suspect that the memory controller on the processor has failed, and in turn that's why it's producing the memory light, even though the RAM itself is perfectly fine. So I have tried a completely different board, different RAM configurations, even different RAM altogether, different power supply, and different motherboard, and the only thing that's made any difference whatsoever is the processor. So a quick test I would suggest for you if you're playing at home and you're experiencing this error right now is get your hands on one of those little post speakers. On most motherboards, they connect to a port that says speaker, usually 4 ports. It has 2 wires. It plugs into here. And what I would do to make sure that it's not your RAM and it's potentially your CPU, put that in, turn the computer off, and take out all the sticks of RAM in the computer, as this should make the post speaker that you've connected produce a constant beep, essentially saying no RAM, no RAM, there is no RAM. So if I just jump this here, like that, we've got it sitting on RAM, and right now I would typically expect this speaker to be going crazy. If this speaker is not going crazy, it could be the memory controller on your processor. Anyway, hopefully this information helps someone out there, and I'll catch you guys later. One other tip before I leave. If you do install different RAM, you may have to wait up to about 5 minutes before the board actually properly starts, especially if it's a brand new build. Do note that. Otherwise, if it's an old system like this one, or not even an old system, this B650 board was only about a 2-day-old computer getting used, and then all of a sudden it crashed and had not wanted to start since. So make sure you chase up on your warranties. With the processor removed, I've got the old suspected faulty one here. I've got the suspected faulty B650 motherboard right here, and I've got the new Ryzen 5 7600 in here. This is what this speaker should sound like. Let's look at the LEDs. That's what should be going on if there's no RAM in your processor, or no RAM in your motherboard. If you're not getting that kind of beep at all with just the processor and no RAM, there's something else going on.
And yes, he did use that battery, which is probably a good troubleshooting technique. So let me know if you guys are having issues with these motherboards for this AROX. I just realized this guy's not even using a AROC motherboard. So I guess there's more than one version to this. Excuse me. I guess there's more than one version of this 650 board. So that might be what the problem is as well. But let me know if you guys are having problems or if you figured it out or if there's any solution to this. And I'll let you know once I buy the other RAM, the 5200 speed RAM, to see if that fixed the issue as well. And I will have that speaker. Let me know if you guys want to do a follow up video with the speaker to see if we can troubleshoot the RAM versus the processor. And I'll make a video if it actually is the RAM. And once I get the RAM in, if it works. But yeah, just trying to get this CPU mining journey going. So let me know if you have any tips. This is Black Tiger Miner signing out, and let's get back to the money, guys.